from the Denver Broncos Media Center, welcome to Broncos Country Tonight with Ryan Edwards and Benjamin Allbright.
Welcome to Broncos Country Tonight. Benjamin Allbright back with me. It's good to have you here, Ben. How are you?
I've been out for a minute, but I'm back now. So
definitely good to have you here. Wanted to get to quite a few things. You and I are going to the NFL Combine next week in Indianapolis,
right.
And of course, it's a hotbed of information. Obviously, we're watching the prospects. Guys can move up and down. I know you hate that. Move up and down draft boards. I did that on purpose. But you also have, again, the mix of information, especially with free agency, just on the other side of this. So this is really when things start to ramp up here in the NFL offseason. Let's talk for a moment on your side of things as an NFL insider. What do you look for out there at the Combine? What's important to you?
Well, I mean, you're looking for guys to test well in the events, if that's what you're talking about. I mean, obviously you want to test well. We aren't privy to the medicals and the interviews, but at night when you get out and about, you get to start talking to people. You get to kind of trade information. Well, you kind of figure out a couple of people that interviewed poorly or people who had medical red flags, things like that. So I think the main thing for fans from the outside looking in is just making sure these guys test well. You want to have that baseline. You want to make sure that if you're a guy, especially if you got a smaller school, you want to be the guy who comes in and shows them that it wasn't just a guy at a smaller school beating up on guys that are going to be, doing banking here shortly. You want to be, considered an NFL guy. So you want to make sure that speed registers the way that it should.
Right. And this draft is going to be really intriguing for a lot of different reasons. First of all, the quarterback group, a little bit of a mixed bag on opinions out there. I think when we first start with the quarterbacks out of the Combine, we're really looking forward to seeing how they test and what's being said about them, because there is no consensus top quarterback right now among almost anybody.
Yeah, I think there are three names at the top, and that's, Matt Corral, Kenny Pickett, and Malik Willis. Sam Howell's kind of in that next tier by himself, the guy that could potentially be drafted at the end of the first round, that kind of thing. And then after that, you start looking at the day two guys like Desmond Ridder and Carson Strong after that. We've talked about Caleb Ellaby a little bit. I think Broncos fans, hint, may want to kind of keep an eye on him as maybe a day three guy. But, yeah, at the top, I don't know if there is a consensus guy. There wasn't a consensus guy last year. Everybody talked about Trevor Lawrence, but I know half a dozen teams that didn't have Trevor Lawrence as the number one guy in that draft.
But there was a bit of an expectation there. And then Zach Wilson, of course, because of his performance at BYU in the previous year, had become one of the guys talked about in the top three. Trey Lance was a guy that was talked about in the top of the draft. But I think a lot of people, at least generally speaking, there was a little bit of movement there. But I don't know. I guess I expected Trevor Lawrence all around. At least it was anchored by guys that were expected to go number one overall, number two, potentially number three. We aren't going to see that likely this year. You're not going to see, assuming, again, nothing changes too much, all of a sudden Detroit could take a quarterback, who knows, at number two. But we're not going to see a quarterback go number one overall, for example, this year.
Probably not.
Unless the trade happens.
You could see someone trade in there. I fully expect three quarterbacks to go in the top 15 and four to go in the first round. We'll see if that happens, but I fully expect that. So, I think thirst for quarterback just pushes guys up, and it pushes guys into pushes teams into where they need to go up to get those guys and make sure that they get those guys. So, we'll see.
I think it's a fun draft for some of the things the Broncos do need. They need defensive line. They need pass rushers. They need offensive tackles, offensive line help. I think that you're starting the trenches for the Broncos. It's not to say you wouldn't look at other positions, but those are the ones that primarily, outside of quarterback, of course, the Broncos have needs at. And they continue to add to the secondary as well at cornerback. That's something that they need to do as well. So we don't know what happens in free agency yet, but this draft, at least the way it's stacked right now, looks really, really deep at those positions.
It does. And you can get starting caliber pass rushers in this draft probably on into the third, maybe even the fourth round, but likely the third round. The top 110, 120 picks are going to have pass rushers that are still going to be able to impact the game at a starter level in their rookie season. So this is a good year to need pass rushers when you got a class that's that deep. There are plenty of tackles in this draft, I think. And so if you're the Broncos, that might be something that, that you're looking at as well. So I think that this draft lines up well for the areas that the Broncos have a vacuum or have a need outside of potentially quarterback. Like I said, we talked about Caleb Ellaby for a second there. Hint, hint again. You may want to keep your eye on that, but as far as being guys that are guaranteed day one starters, I think the perception of that's a little bit lower. However, guys that could turn into starters, there's 7 or 8 guys.
So on the defensive line, some of the edge guys as well. The top guys are always going to be interesting to watch. Aiden Hutchinson, Kayvon Thibodeau. You're going to see those guys. Jermaine Johnson, who had a pretty good Senior Bowl performance out there. Another guy that I'm excited to watch, David Ojabo with Michigan. That's another guy that's going to be kind of in that range. And again, we're talking about first-round guys. But again, these are all, that's a little bit of level of depth. Now, what's interesting this year for me is usually quarterbacks push some of that talent down. That's not necessarily going to be the case this year. Again, assuming things stack the way we sort of projected, there's always surprises.
Yeah, it'll take one team trading first, and that first team that trades up, then you'll start to see others move up because they'll realize I got to get ahead of so-and-so to get my guy. You talked about those pass rushers. I expect Thibodeau to go a little lower than people think, but beyond that, you may not get those guys pushed down to where they normally would be pushed down to due to quarterbacks. But again, I do expect, like I said, 3 quarterbacks to go in the top 15. So the Broncos pick it at 9. It'll be interesting to see if that pushes anyone in their lap.
Yeah, and then offensive tackle, of course, Evan Neal there at the top. Probably going to be gone before the Broncos pick at 9. Ekem Ekwonu is also going to be gone as well. So it's going to be a bit of a challenge to get some of the premier guys. Cross might be gone by the time they pick at 9. But there's going to be some really talented players there. And the Broncos, according to the quote we got from George Payton when he spoke with DenverBroncos.com, Eric Dalala, he said that right tackle is one of those things they want to fix from now and into the future. So definitely be keeping your eye on the offensive tackles in this draft.
Yeah, and you know, like I said, this is a good draft to need one because there are plenty of them available. I know they like Calvin Anderson, but I know they liked Bobby Massey, but I think they want a longer-term, surefire solution rather than somebody they're developing or somebody that's just kind of a bridge guy.
So a lot of intrigue in this draft, especially for the Broncos, who do need to fill some holes. They might fill a lot of those holes in free agency. This is going to be some of those long-term looks, guys but they have 5 picks in the top 100, at least as we sit here right now. Mm-hmm. Might trade some of those picks, of course, for a quarterback. Who knows? Or, hey, Caleb Ellaby in a quarterback competition. Ben, you keep pounding the table for that. I'm sure that's going to work out just fine.
Well, there would be other things going on than just taking Caleb Ellaby in the 4th-ish round. But,
hint.
Just picking around at random. But, I think that if you're doing the quarterback competition thing, which if you don't get a top-tier guy, that's probably what you're doing. I can't see the Broncos spending what it would take in terms of draft capital and salary to bring in Kirk Cousins or Jimmy Garoppolo. So that leaves you with, the final tier, which is the Marcus Mariota, Mitch Trubisky, Jameis Winston tier of people. And I could see them bringing in one of those and lock in a draft pick and having a competition. And I think that in that circumstance, if you miss out on all the other stuff, that's the smart move.
Okay. All right. Plenty to talk about. Of course, next time we do Broncos Country Tonight, we'll be following the NFL Combine, and then we'll have free agency right on the other side of that. For Benjamin Allbright, I'm Ryan Edwards. Thanks for watching Broncos Country Tonight.